Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, there are several things going on tonight with this show.
Johnny Carson spent decades as the steady, composed face of late-night television. Night after night, millions tuned in expecting smooth delivery, effortless humor, and complete control. But behind that polished image were moments that revealed something far more intense. In this video, we explore the most powerful confrontations tied to Carson's name, including the one that came closest to breaking everything. Joan Rivers was once one of Carson's closest allies. Early in her career, when few women were given a real chance in comedy, Carson brought her onto his show again and again. Those appearances helped her grow her reputation and earn credibility in a tough industry. Over time, she became more than just a guest, she became someone Carson trusted. He even allowed her to guest host, something reserved for very few. Many believed Rivers was the natural successor to Carson. She wasn't just connected to the show, she was part of its future. Then, in 1986, everything changed. Rivers accepted an offer to host her own late-night show on a competing network. It was a groundbreaking opportunity, but the way it unfolded created tension. She didn't inform Carson directly before the news broke. From her perspective, it was a rushed decision. From his, it felt like betrayal. When Rivers tried to explain, Carson cut the conversation short. Just like that, their relationship ended. No reconciliation. No second chance. She was never invited back to the show during his lifetime. For Rivers, the loss was deeply personal. She had seen Carson as a mentor, even a father figure. For Carson, it was a line crossed that couldn't be undone. But this wasn't the only time Carson turned a personal feeling into a public moment. One night, while Don Rickles was guest hosting, he accidentally damaged Carson's wooden cigarette box, a small object, but one Carson valued. Instead of brushing it off, Carson chose to respond in a way no one expected. He walked onto Rickles' sitcom set during filming, holding the broken box. The cameras were rolling. The audience was confused. And Rickles was completely caught off guard. Carson confronted him calmly but directly, asking about the damage. The tension was real, but Rickles, known for his quick wit, tried to turn it into humor. Slowly, the audience shifted from silence to laughter. What started as a confrontation became entertainment, but the message was clear. Carson had drawn a boundary, and he made sure it was seen. Still, not every situation stayed that controlled. For years, Carson joked about Wayne Newton in his monologues. At first, it seemed harmless. But over time, the jokes became more pointed, touching on personal topics and even hinting at serious allegations. Newton didn't laugh. Instead, he showed up at Carson's office. No cameras. No audience. No script. He confronted Carson directly, demanding the joke stop. The tension escalated quickly. Voices were raised, and according to multiple accounts, the situation nearly turned physical. Carson, known for pushing limits, backed down. Almost immediately, the jokes about Newton stopped. It was a rare moment, one where Carson, who usually controlled every narrative, chose silence instead. Not all responses were loud, though. Actor Raymond Burr took a very different approach. Carson often joked about Burr's weight during his monologues. At first, it seemed like standard late-night humor. But the repetition turned it into something more personal. Burr didn't confront Carson publicly. Instead, he reached out privately, asking for the jokes to stop. Nothing changed. So Burr made a quiet decision. After his next appearance, he simply never returned. No announcement. No drama. Just absence. Over time, people noticed. A regular guest had disappeared without explanation. And that silence spoke louder than any argument could. Carson couldn't respond to it. He couldn't turn it into a joke. Burr had stepped away, and in doing so, he took control of the situation. Then there was the media. In 1980, a major newspaper published a report claiming Carson was earning around $25 million a year. The number shocked the public. Some admired it, others criticized it. Carson wasn't amused. He addressed it on air, holding up the paper and challenging the report directly. His tone was sharper than usual. Less humor, more frustration. This wasn't about money, it was about image. Carson had carefully built how the public saw him. The report disrupted that. And for one of the few times in his career, viewers saw him not as a host, but as someone defending himself. But the most personal conflict didn't happen on television. It happened behind closed doors. Carson's relationship with his son Rick was complicated. Years of emotional distance had created tension that never fully resolved. In 1987, during a celebration marking Carson's 25th anniversary on The Tonight Show, that tension came to the surface. What should have been a night of celebration turned into something else entirely. A private conversation escalated. Voices were raised. The argument became intense enough that others nearby noticed. Some accounts suggest it nearly became physical. For those who witnessed it, the moment was shocking. This wasn't the calm, controlled Carson they knew. This was a father in conflict with his son. The relationship never fully recovered. And when Rick passed away in 1991, any chance of reconciliation disappeared with him. That loss stayed with Carson. Some conflicts, however, exploded in unexpected ways. When author Jacqueline Susan appeared on the show, Carson introduced her with a tone that felt dismissive. He made jokes about her work and later, comments that felt more personal than playful. Suzanne stayed composed during the interview. But later, at a private gathering, she confronted him directly. Without warning, she threw her drink in his face. The room fell silent. Carson was stunned. Suzanne walked away. She never returned to the show. It was one of the rare moments where someone didn't just respond to Carson, they challenged him openly. Another moment sparked public reaction for a very different reason. When Vanessa Williams became the first Black Miss America, it was a historic achievement. But during his monologue, Carson made a joke that seemed to question the significance of her win. The audience reaction was uncertain. Outside the studio, the response was stronger. Critics called the joke insensitive. Williams responded with calm honesty. She expressed disappointment but didn't escalate the situation. Carson, on the other hand, didn't address it publicly in a meaningful way. It was a reminder that even a single line meant for humor could carry weight far beyond the stage. Years later, one of Carson's longest-running conflicts quietly resurfaced. After more than 2 decades, Joan Rivers finally returned to The Tonight Show, this time under a new host. The moment was emotional. Rivers didn't avoid the past. She spoke openly about the fallout with Carson and how deeply it had affected her. She acknowledged his role in her success, but also the pain of how things ended. There was no reunion. Carson had already passed away. The closure was incomplete. And that's what made it powerful. Finally, in 1992, Carson prepared to say goodbye to late night. The atmosphere was celebratory until the conversation took a turn. A younger comedian suggested that Carson's style was becoming outdated. It wasn't aggressive, but it was direct. Carson didn't ignore it. He responded firmly, defending the approach that had defined his career. It wasn't just a reply, it was a statement. He wasn't ready to be dismissed. Even in his final moments on air, Carson showed he was still willing to stand his ground. Because behind the calm voice and effortless delivery was someone who cared deeply about respect, control, and how he was seen. These moments didn't destroy his legacy. But they revealed something real beneath it. A man who wasn't always as untouchable as he appeared. If you want more stories like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Prestige Buzz, hit the bell notification so you never miss what comes next.